Good morning. It's Annalisa. It's 7:53 a.m. and I'm back in Manila. Hey. So I missed vlogging during the Korea visit. So I wanted to just go back and talk about that because it was very interesting. It's just been a really crazy few weeks so far. So if you haven't seen my other vlogs, basically I'm on this East-West Center Journalism Fellowship, which takes us to different countries. And we started in Hawaii to represent the US. And then we went to Seoul in South Korea. And now we're in my hometown, or my current resident home, which is Manila in Philippines. And then we head to Sydney in Australia. But the whole theme of this study tour is immigration, migration policy for these different governments that we're visiting, and I guess talking about the different challenges that each migrant group faces in each different country. So it's been interesting so far. I vlogged about the one in the US with the Filipinos in Hawaii. And a couple days ago, we just arrived in Manila, but we came from Seoul in South Korea. And there were several interesting issues that we talked about there. I'm just going to refer to the handbook that we've been using with our agenda because there was just so much that we learned while we were there. And of course, Filipinos will know that South Korea is one of the preferred destinations to live, aside from obviously the United States, Canada, but I guess Japan and South Korea within Asia are some of the most favored destinations, because I think this is because they have very efficient societies. I guess things work in terms of I guess transportation and living, and just things are easier, I guess. But that can be challenged after I've learned a little bit more about the society and culture there. So some of the interesting conversations that we had there, Filipinos, of course, there's a large population of them there. We met actually a Filipino naturalized, who's now naturalized as a Korean citizen, Jasmine Lee, who was like the first naturalized citizen in their national assembly. So she was a lawmaker but born in the Philippines in Davao del Norte. And she had married a Korean man and moved to South Korea with him, and then had children there, and pretty much was, a regular part of the society. But it was interesting because when she became a lawmaker, people started hating on her because they were thinking, why is a Filipino person making laws in Korea? So that was an interesting dynamic. She said that she had been in entertainment before. She had acted in some movies there and some of the TV shows there. And she said that people loved her before, but then when she became a government person, she got some hate out of that. And I did look up some stories where people were talking about how she got so much discrimination because of that. So I thought that was interesting. But yes, the Filipino and Korean countries have a very strong relationship. So it's interesting to learn more about that. We also talked about the lack of I guess, concrete immigration policy to address some of the population issues that Korea is facing right now, which is essentially the low birth rate, as well as a labor shortage. So some of these lower skilled jobs that are available, the locals don't want to do, or the domestic workers don't, well, not domestic workers, but the people in Korea don't want to do. So they need people to work in these types of jobs like manufacturing, construction, and domestic help. And they need people to do kind of, because Korea has largely been a homogenous society for so long, there's nationalistic identity that has permeated the culture, because of its past with Japan and foreign powers there. So now the older generation, 40s and above, people in their 40s and above, are just kind of insulated from the outside world. So they are generally suspicious of immigrant communities and refugees. So we talked a lot about, there's a lot of talk about the Yemeni refugees that went to Jeju Island, and it caused kind of this uproar amongst the locals because they felt like, you know, they have their own domestic issues with labor. Why bring in other people or people from the outside to exacerbate it, according to some of the public sentiment out there, as well as obviously the North Korean refugees. We met a few defectors who are now thriving entrepreneurs in South Korea, but we also talked about some of the challenges they face in terms of discrimination and people, you know, not really accepting them within their society. And that's obviously in any country, but being able to talk about that about South Korea in general was pretty interesting. And I think just my takeaway from that the few days that we were there, learning about the migrant communities, you know, Filipinos living and working there. This is an age where South Korea is looking at opening up even more, but the barrier in language, that's very difficult. Just in a personal experience, we had to have everything translated because people just don't speak English. English isn't as common over there. So that was difficult because then you get lost in translation, you know, especially because it's up to the translator who has to, you know, decipher everything you're saying. And so they put kind of their feelings into the translation. We also heard about this interesting and sad situation where some translators were purposely putting false information from refugees. So for example, if a refugee said they came there because they were fleeing some hardship in their home country, and, you know, really had no choice but to move to South Korea, the translator wouldn't write that. They would write something like, oh, this person is moving here for, you know, construction work and looking to work and make money here, which wasn't accurate. But there's an issue now of whether the translator did that on purpose or if that was really a misunderstanding. But I think the general consensus is that the translator did that on purpose, which would be horrible and sad. And there are some legal cases right now about that. We talked about that too. Anyway, sorry if I'm totally rambling. It's almost 8, or now it's after 8 a.m. And so I'm just trying to, again, collect my thoughts on everything that has happened. It's just been a crazy week so far. Anyway, so we are here in Manila for a few days, and I have been tasked to be essentially the tour guide here. So that's been interesting. Took everyone to Intramuros, but the problem is that everything had closed. So they couldn't really go inside. Some of the people in the group haven't been to the Philippines before. So if you have any suggestions on where, you know, people should visit if they've never been to Manila, let me know, because right now I'm trying to just give them the overview of the highlights. Of course, Intramuros is a must-see destination or a must-see location. Okay, so that is about it. I will vlog again in a few days about the Philippine experience. So far, we've met with the Commission on Overseas Filipinos. And so that was interesting. We're going to be visiting the agencies that handle the OFWs and meeting some other journalists here. So yeah, so far so good. And yeah, a lot of things going on. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.